A group of people, the Jewish people in Isaiah chapter 58. It's all the book of Isaiah. If you read Isaiah, there's a group of people that they were doing all the commandments that God had for them. I mean, they were following all these laws, doing all the rituals. They were worshiping. They were doing the sacrifices. They were fasting, observing fast. They were observing the Sabbath. And they were looking at God going, scratching their head going, we're doing all these things. Why aren't you pleased with us? And God says, because you've ended it with you. You stopped with you. All these changes that are supposed to be happening in your life are supposed to bleed over into the culture around you. God chose the nation of Israel to be a light to the nations around them, but they built up walls and said, we're okay right here, and we're just going to worry about our lives. And God says, you know what, instead of doing all these fasts and all these things that you're doing, all these rituals, why don't you just go help somebody who's bonded by wickedness and bonded by chains of suffering and help them out? Why don't you stand up for what's right and stand against for what's wrong in the culture around you? That's what he says in Isaiah 58. That's the kind of fast I want. For you to get outside of yourself and become culturally engaged. And I thought to myself, how many times have maybe I failed at that? I've kept moral discernment stopping at my life. I want to be morally discerning so that my life will be pleasing to God. That sounds great. It is great. That's great. It is. That's a great benefit. But is that really the end result that is supposed to take place? Or is there something further than that? See, the truth of the matter is that I think I put periods at the end of sentences when I'm supposed to put a comma. Let me tell you what I mean. What's a disciple of Jesus? A disciple of Jesus is somebody who follows Jesus, period. Well, that's true, right? But maybe I need to actually put a comma. It's somebody who follows Jesus in order to become like Jesus. Isn't that right? I mean, a disciple has a rabbi, and the whole purpose of a disciple with a rabbi is to become like who? The rabbi. It's to become, as John said here, anybody who abides in Jesus needs to walk as Jesus did. You need to become like your master. That's being a disciple. Somebody who follows Jesus to become more like Jesus so we can live like Jesus, period. Maybe not a period. What if there's supposed to be a comma after that? What if I am supposed to be following Jesus in order to become like Jesus, and I'm just the means to the end? It doesn't end with me, believe it or not. And I become like Jesus, comma, so that I can share and show Jesus to the world around me, to the glory of God. Well, that ending has nothing to do with me. I'm just a tool. And God says, you're right. I have no problem seeing that with sacrificial generosity. I become sacrificially generous so I can be an intentional blessing to the world around me. You know why I'm becoming morally discerning? You know why you're becoming morally discerning? It's so that we can show a world what moral discernment looks like, a world that has no idea what is right, wrong, up, down, black, white, anything. And is desperately needing these answers. Desperately needs to see people that are morally discerning. Taking in and engaging the culture to right wrongs, to stand up for what is right, to stand against an injustice, to get involved. That's why we're becoming morally discerning. That's it. See, what sacrificial generosity, as it matures, you know what it makes me do? It makes me become an intentional blessing. It makes me look at the world and say, how can I help? How can I serve the world around me? That's what it makes me do. Moral discernment, as it matures in my life and it becomes more and more, it takes more and more in life, and I see it more and more, it makes me say, how can I change the world around me? How can I serve the world around me? How can I change the world around me? An example might be somebody with sacrificial generosity looks at somebody who's in an unfortunate situation and says, how can I use my time, treasure, and talent to help you? Right? To serve you. Somebody with moral discernment would say look at that same situation with somebody who's unfortunate and would say, ooh, what caused that? What's the injustice? What's wrong that's making this happen? Because this isn't right. And I want to attack that. Can you imagine putting both those things together? Helping the unfortunate and then looking at the cause and saying I need to do something about that? See, as I keep growing and growing in this area and I continue to be humbly submitted and biblically formed and become morally discerning, I do look at my life and I see parts of my life and I go, God, this needs to change, right? I mean, I'm seeing this now. I didn't see this before, but I see it now. And God says, yeah. And I go, well, who's going to change this? And God says, I will. Will you let me just use you and live through you and I will change this? And I go, oh, great. And then something happens with those same morally discerning eyes that the scales have fallen off. I look around me at a world around me that doesn't have the same eyes that I do. I don't have the God's eyes. Still blinded. And I go, oh, that's not right. That's not right. That's an injustice, or that is right, and somebody needs to stand up for that. That's not right. Somebody should do something about that. And the same way that I said, God, you need to do something about something in my life, I now look around me and I see it's not about me, but I've been changed so that I can be an agent of change. And I go, hey, somebody needs to do something about that. And God says the same thing that he says about my own life. He says, I will do that through you. Will you let me use you in order to be an agent of change to the world around you? That's why we're becoming what we're becoming. We are changing so that we can change the world. We are becoming different. Moral discernment is going to make us different, isn't it? We're becoming different so that we can make a difference in the world around us. That's why. For some of us, maybe like me, you put a period when we should have put a comma. It's not about us. It's never been about us.